The wind whipped across the parade ground as Sergeant Cole barked orders at the line of young recruits. His voice carried like thunder across the base, sharp, merciless, and precise. Dust rose around their boots as they struggled to keep in step, their breaths visible in the cold morning air. Cole's jaw was set, his eyes scanning every movement. Weakness was not tolerated here. Move faster. You think the enemy's gonna wait for you to tie your boots? He shouted, slamming his fist against a metal pole for emphasis. From the corner of his eye, he noticed a civilian figure approaching, a tall woman in a long black coat, walking calmly toward the training area. Her steps were slow but firm, her chin lifted, her eyes steady. She didn't belong here, and that alone was enough to irritate him. Cole stormed forward, his boots echoing against the concrete. Hey! Civilian areas on the other side. You can't be here. The woman didn't flinch. Her gaze met his, calm, unafraid, as if she were used to being challenged. I'm looking for Private Malik, she said evenly. He's my nephew. Cole snorted. Your nephew, huh? And what's he doing letting family wander into a restricted zone? He grabbed her arm roughly, pulling her back a few steps. You could get someone court-martialed for this. Her expression didn't change, though her eyes turned colder. I said I'm here for my nephew. Release my arm, Sergeant. Her tone had the weight of command, but Cole didn't recognize it. He only saw defiance, and that infuriated him. You don't give me orders here, lady. I run this ground. He snapped, tightening his grip. Recruits nearby froze, their eyes darting between their sergeant and the woman. Private Malik's face went pale as he realized who it was. Sir. That's my. Before he could finish, Cole shoved the woman backward. She stumbled but didn't fall. She straightened slowly, her coat shifting just enough to reveal a flash of deep green uniform beneath it. Two military police officers appeared at the gate, jogging toward them. As they came closer, they stopped abruptly and saluted sharply. General Kareema Black, ma'am. One of them said breathlessly. We didn't expect your inspection this early. The silence that followed was deafening. Every soldier froze in place, every breath caught midair. Cole's hand dropped instantly from her arm, his face draining of color. The title hung in the air like a thunderclap, General. General Kareema calmly adjusted her sleeve, revealing the silver stars on her shoulder, four of them, gleaming beneath the morning light. The highest rank on the base. She looked at him, her voice measured and quiet. I see how you treat those you believe to be beneath you, Sergeant. I'll remember this. Without another word, she turned toward Malik, who stood trembling, then gave him a faint, reassuring nod. Cole stood there, stiff, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. The recruits dared not look at him. The woman he'd just shoved wasn't an intruder, she was the legendary commander known across the entire division as the Black Panther, a woman whose name inspired both fear and respect. And now, she knew his name too. Sergeant Cole stood at rigid attention inside the tribunal room, his hands clenched so tightly behind his back that his knuckles turned white. The echo of boots, the whisper of papers, and the quiet murmur of officers filled the air. He had faced disciplinary boards before, but never one like this. Not when she was sitting across the table. General Kareema Black sat at the head of the long oak desk, her uniform flawless, her posture straight as a blade. The only sign of her earlier encounter was a faint bruise along her wrist, hidden beneath the cuff of her sleeve. Her face gave nothing away, no anger, no emotion. Only command. The presiding officer cleared his throat. Sergeant Cole, your actions earlier today were in violation of military protocol. Physical aggression toward any civilian or officer. Kareema raised a hand gently. I'll handle this, she said. Her voice was soft, but it silenced the room instantly. Cole swallowed hard. Ma'am, I didn't know who you were. You thought you were in control, she interrupted calmly. You thought you could intimidate whoever you wanted. You thought rank meant dominance. She stood, walking slowly around the table, her boots tapping against the floor with quiet precision. Tell me, Sergeant, what does discipline mean to you? Cole hesitated. It means following orders. Maintaining authority. Kareema stopped in front of him, close enough for him to feel the weight of her presence. Authority without respect is tyranny. Discipline without understanding is just fear. He couldn't meet her eyes. Ma'am, one of the officers murmured, will you be pressing formal charges? Kareema looked back at Cole for a long moment. No. Cole's head snapped up in surprise. The officers exchanged glances. No charges. The presiding officer repeated. No, she said. He doesn't need punishment. He needs perspective. She turned back to Cole. From this moment, you're reassigned to my command. You'll serve directly under me. Every order, every operation, every failure, will go through me. Do you understand, Sergeant? Cole's heart pounded. Ma'am, under you. Yes, she replied coldly. You'll learn what leadership really is. You'll learn the difference between fear and respect. And you'll do it while answering to the woman you once laid hands on. Her words landed like steel. He nodded stiffly. Understood, ma'am. Good, she said, turning back toward the tribunal. I'll take responsibility for him. The hearing was dismissed, and as Cole followed her out into the hallway, his mind spun. Soldiers stopped and stared as the two walked past, the feared Black Panther with the disgraced sergeant trailing a step behind her. Outside, the sun blazed against the parade ground, casting sharp shadows across the asphalt. Kareema paused at the edge of the steps, looking out at the rows of recruits drilling below. Tell me, Sergeant, she said without turning. When you saw me earlier, what did you see? Cole hesitated. A civilian. Someone who didn't belong here. And now? She asked. He exhaled slowly. A commander. Someone who earned every ounce of this ground. She finally turned, meeting his eyes. Then maybe there's hope for you yet. And with that, she walked away, leaving him standing in the sunlight, knowing that the hardest chapter of his career had just begun. The mountain air was thin and cold, the kind that burned the lungs and coated every breath in frost. Snow crunched beneath their boots as the small strike team moved silently through the canyon pass. General Kareema led from the front, her eyes sharp, every motion deliberate. Behind her followed Sergeant Cole and Private Malik, their rifles raised, senses alert. They had been ordered to locate a missing convoy that vanished 2 days ago, a simple retrieval mission, or so the command had said. But Kareema's instincts told her otherwise. The silence was too heavy, the wind too still. Keep formation tight, she whispered over her shoulder. Eyes up. We're being watched. Cole scanned the cliffs, his finger hovering near the trigger. He had served under her for months now, and though she rarely raised her voice, her commands carried an authority that settled in his bones. He had come to respect her deeply, almost fiercely, though he'd never admit it aloud. Malik stumbled slightly on the icy path. Cole reached out to steady him. Easy. Private. Watch your footing. Before Malik could reply, a single sharp crack split the air, the unmistakable sound of a rifle. Ambush. Kareema shouted. The mountains erupted in chaos. Bullets ricocheted off the rocks, the echoes bouncing like thunder. The team dove for cover behind boulders as the air filled with smoke and dust. Kareema crouched low, firing controlled bursts uphill, directing her men with calm precision. Cole, flank left. Malik, with me. Cole sprinted across the ridge, sliding behind a rock. He peeked around, spotting 3 figures in camouflage above them. He signaled to Kareema, who nodded once, then charged forward with impossible composure. A grenade landed near Malik's feet. Kareema saw it first. Without hesitation, she shoved him aside, the explosion throwing her backward. A sharp cry escaped her lips as shrapnel tore through her shoulder. General! Cole shouted, darting toward her through the smoke. He didn't think, he moved. His body acted on instinct, the same instinct she had drilled into him 100 times. He reached her side, dragging her behind a boulder as gunfire rained down. Blood seeped through her uniform, staining the snow dark red. She gritted her teeth, refusing to cry out. Focus on the fight, Sergeant, she hissed, pressing a hand to the wound. Not until I get you out of this, he said, his voice low but determined. He tore off part of his sleeve, pressing it against the wound. Then, using the brief cover of smoke, he stood and returned fire, clean, precise shots that silenced 2 attackers on the ridge. The third tried to run, but Cole's aim was true. The canyon fell silent once more, save for the soft hiss of wind and the crackle of dying flames. When the last echo faded, Cole knelt beside her. You're hit bad, ma'am. We need to get you to evac. Kareema shook her head weakly. We finish the mission first. The convoy, it's close. Forget the convoy. He snapped, something no one else would dare say to her. You're bleeding out. She looked up at him then, eyes steady despite the pain. You sound like a soldier who finally understands what matters. He stared at her, chest heaving. I understand that respect doesn't mean letting you die. Her lips curved in the faintest ghost of a smile. You've changed, Sergeant. Cole hoisted her arm over his shoulder and began leading her down the slope, every step a battle against the cold and the weight of her body. The others followed silently, their faces pale but filled with renewed purpose. By the time the extraction chopper arrived, Kareema had passed out from blood loss, her head resting against Cole's arm. He held her tightly, unwilling to let go even as medics rushed forward. As the helicopter lifted into the darkening sky, Malik looked at Cole and whispered, "You saved her, sir." Cole shook his head, staring out at the fading horizon. "No," he said quietly. "She saved us, long before today." Above them, the chopper disappeared into the snow clouds, carrying the woman who had once been his enemy, now his greatest teacher. The ceremony was held at dusk, under a burning orange sky that painted the entire base in shades of gold and crimson. The air was cool and still, carrying a weight of reverence and unspoken emotion. Soldiers stood in perfect formation across the parade ground, their boots lined up like clockwork, rifles gleaming in the fading light. At the center stood Sergeant Cole, his uniform spotless, every metal polished until it caught the last rays of the sun. His face was steady, but inside, his chest was tight with a strange mix of pride and guilt. He had been summoned by the command to receive a medal for bravery, for saving General Kareema Black's life during the ambush in the mountains. Yet, to him, it didn't feel like heroism. It felt like repayment, a small fraction of the respect he owed her. The band played softly as General Kareema approached. Her arm was still in a sling from the injury, but she moved with the same quiet strength that made men half her age straighten instinctively. The soldiers whispered among themselves, stories of her courage had already spread across bases for miles. The Black Panther, they called her, and now she stood face to face with the man who had once dared to shove her. Kareema stopped before Cole, a faint breeze catching the edge of her black uniform coat. Her eyes met his, steady, unreadable, sharp as ever. The officer beside her handed her a small box. She opened it slowly, revealing the silver medal inside. "Sergeant Cole," she began, her voice carrying across the silent field, "bravery is not measured by the absence of fear, but by the choice to act despite it. You showed courage under fire, loyalty to your comrades, and selflessness toward your commanding officer." She stepped closer, pinning the medal to his chest with careful precision. Her fingers brushed the fabric for only a moment. "For that, the Army thanks you." Cole swallowed hard, his throat dry. "Thank you, ma'am." She nodded once, but instead of stepping back, she leaned in slightly, her voice low enough that only he could hear. "You've done well, Sergeant. But don't mistake this medal for forgiveness." He blinked, unsure if he heard her right. "Ma'am." Straightening, she continued in that same calm tone. "You still owe me something, not a salute, not an apology, something deeper." He frowned slightly. "What's that, General?" "Your loyalty," she said, her gaze unwavering. "Not to me, to the soldiers who look up to you now. Led them the way I've led you. With strength, not pride. With purpose, not ego." For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of the flag snapping in the wind filled the silence between them. Then Cole brought his hand up in a perfect salute, his eyes glinting with the reflection of the setting sun. The crowd broke into applause, the sound rolling across the courtyard like distant thunder. Kareema acknowledged it with a brief nod, then turned to leave the stage. Cole stood motionless, watching her walk away, the woman who had transformed his entire understanding of what it meant to wear a uniform. As the band resumed playing and soldiers began to disperse, Malik approached, grinning proudly. "You did it, sir. You're a hero now." Cole shook his head slowly, still watching Kareema's retreating figure. "No," he said quietly. "She's the hero. I'm just someone lucky enough to learn from one." That night, as darkness settled over the base, Cole sat outside his barracks staring at the medal gleaming faintly in his palm. It was more than a symbol, it was a promise. And somewhere across the compound, Kareema stood by her office window, watching the same stars, knowing that for the first time, the sergeant she had once despised had finally earned not just her respect, but her faith. The year had passed like smoke, one long blur of conflict, loss, and the steady drumbeat of war. The base that once felt alive with drills and laughter now echoed with radio chatter and the low hum of distant artillery. The world had changed. And so had they. Sergeant Cole stood on the edge of the runway, wind whipping through his hair as the roar of engines filled the air. He had been summoned once again, not as a subordinate, but as a leader. A man shaped by fire. Across the tarmac, armored vehicles rolled by, painted with dust and the scars of battle. Soldiers saluted as they passed him, and for the first time, he returned each salute not out of pride, but out of respect. The war had taken its toll. Intelligence leaks, sabotaged missions, ambushes that claimed lives, the kind of wounds that medals couldn't heal. And at the center of it all was General Kareema Black, the Black Panther herself, still commanding, still fierce, though her limp was now permanent. Rumors whispered through the ranks that she was considering retirement. Cole didn't want to believe it. He found her standing alone near the hangar, her hands clasped behind her back, her eyes fixed on the mountains that framed the horizon. The light of dawn caught the edge of her medals, making them shimmer faintly. She didn't turn when she spoke. Do you know what I see when I look at those mountains, Sergeant? He stopped beside her, following her gaze. What's that, ma'am? I see every battle I've fought, she said quietly. Every mistake. Every man and woman who followed me into the fire and never came back. Her voice wavered slightly, something Cole had never heard before. And I wonder if I've done enough to make it worth it. You have, he said simply. You've done more than anyone I've ever known. She turned to face him then, studying him in silence. He wasn't the same man who had grabbed her arm a year ago. The arrogance, the temper, the blind need to dominate, all gone. What stood before her now was a soldier forged in humility, courage, and sacrifice. You've grown, she said softly. More than I expected. He smiled faintly. Had a good teacher. Her lips curved slightly. I was hard on you. You had to be, he said. Otherwise, I'd still be the fool who thought shouting made me strong. For a long moment, they simply stood there, the warplanes roaring above them like steel eagles cutting through the dawn. Kareema finally extended her hand. I'm stepping down, Sergeant. My time's over. Command's yours now. His heart stopped. Mine. You've earned it, she said. You've earned their trust. Their loyalty. I can't lead forever, but you can carry forward what I started. He hesitated, staring at her hand. The weight of what she was saying hit him like a bullet, not fear, but the magnitude of responsibility. Slowly, he shook her hand, his grip firm but reverent. Thank you, General. She nodded once. Don't thank me. Just lead with the same fire you showed on that mountain. A horn blared in the distance, the signal for deployment. Cole turned toward the waiting transport, his soldiers lined up, ready to move. He started toward them, but then paused, glancing back. Kareema stood there watching him, her black coat billowing in the wind, eyes fierce as ever. He raised his hand in salute, sharp, perfect, unwavering. And this time, she returned it. Their eyes met for a moment longer, mentor and student, general and sergeant, two warriors bound by the lessons of pain, respect, and redemption. Then Cole climbed aboard the transport, the engines roared to life, and the ramp closed behind him. As the convoy rolled out toward the front lines, Kareema whispered under her breath, once a soldier learns humility, he becomes unstoppable. She watched until the last vehicle disappeared into the rising dust. Somewhere in the distance, the sky broke open with the first light of dawn, and for the first time in years, the Black Panther allowed herself to smile.